Good evening. I'll call to order this Fairfield Plan and Zoning Commission special meeting for September 16th, 2025. Start with our meeting minutes from September 2nd and September 9th. Motion, Commissioner Corsillo.
Move to approve with a couple of minor comments. I mentioned there are a couple of small typos. I had sent those in earlier.
Typos, I don't think we need to go through them unless anybody wants them, but let's see, is there a second? Commissioner Levy seconds. Commissioner Corsillo.
Further.
Commissioner Levy.
Nothing further.
Commissioner Braun, I saw your hand.
Yeah, I have a problem with the minutes of September 2nd. First of all, it does not give the vote on either of the two votes we took. The vote was 4-3, and that should be spelled out, who voted which way. I know 3 people voted against it. Number two.
I think Commissioner Corsillo just whispered to me that he addressed that with.
Pardon me?
I sent that to staff.
Okay, number two, the law is unsettled on whether a protest petition applies to 8-30G. That was even noted in our staff comments for the Reef Road application. So I don't think we can conclude just by not mentioning it in the minutes, it's just ignored in the minutes. We should at least know if the 20% threshold was reached by the petitions. I don't know. That should be in the minutes for certain. I don't know if we ever got that answered, but if they did meet the 20%, then in my opinion, this was denied because there was not a super majority. It would have required a 5-2 vote, not a 4-3 vote, and you had 3 votes against it. So I think the minutes, we at least need the town attorney to advise us, but the law is unsettled on whether it applies to the protest, whether a protest petition can be used. I would at least like to know if the 20% was reached.
Well, I think we were clear in the staff comments in the application that the 20% was. So that's on the record already as being there in the minutes. And I mean, we can go, I'll need to rehash the discussion points that we had. There's a Superior Court case that's on point on the issue, and that's compelling authority to us. So I don't really know what more needs to be said at that point. If there's an appeal taken on it, so be it. But I don't know that I don't think the minutes need to reflect legal determinations as we discussed there. So I mean, if you're making a motion or a friendly amendment to amend things, so be it. But I mean, that's what you're doing. But at least the vote will be taken care of. The 4-3 vote will be outlined. That was one of the things that Commissioner Corsillo mentioned to Ms. Harrigan. That will be amended. And again, it's part of the record as to 20% being hit. And
I don't know. I'm not sure it's in the record. It should be put in the record in the minutes anyway.
I don't know if have we ever put something like that in the minutes?
It comes up very infrequently, so I would defer to the commission as to what, if they would like to insert that as a group. I would defer to the commission if you feel comfortable adding it, but
I think it's pretty clearly part of the record. I don't think it needs to be reflected in the minutes. The minutes are not the complete record. Commissioner Levy?
Yeah, it's just, I'd have no objection to the minutes of reflecting that the 20% petition standard was met and that the vote was for an approval at 4-3 and leave it at that.
Well, I would say based on, if we're going to include it, then we got to say it's based on Superior Court decision. Commissioner Corsillo, any thoughts?
I'm sorry, just to be clear, you're saying that if we note in the minute, if we amend the minutes to note that the 20% was set, that we also need to note that
Why was the denial?
that it's still a denial based on Superior Court.
I would, otherwise,
Approval based on.
approval, whatever it was, because otherwise you're gonna,
Right.
it's initially, the document's gonna seem contradictory.
I mean, I don't think it's necessary, but I'm not opposed to adding it. So that's fine.
Can somebody indicate, I do not recall the protest petitions being submitted and having the analysis presented to us. That's done by engineering, isn't it?
No, staff
No.
comments, staff in their comments It's submitted to staff, it's verified by staff, and staff told us that it was a valid petition. As they normally do in their staff comments.
Can Ms. Harrigan just confirm that? And also,
Just
is
did
the
twice.
analysis that's done by staff, is that in our, is that in the record?
Yes.
Can Ms.
I
Harrigan?
mean,
Because I don't
yes.
remember that being presented.
Well, I don't think that, I mean, it is in the file. It's in the folder that we have a memo. We had a memo to the commission that indicated that we had done that analysis and it had met that 20% threshold, and that is in the file. And we do have obviously the marked up work product. It's a very tedious exercise in terms of not just analyzing the land area within a 500-foot radius, but also the partial lot areas that are within that radius, as well as confirming ownership information based on the signatures that were provided. So just because there's one signature for a property, you don't get the full amount for that property, for example. Sometimes you only get 50% of that area, if not, if both of the property owners don't actually sign the petition. So there's a bit of technical legwork that's done before we provide that information to you.
So in other words, you have to go through and make sure you have the valid property owners, all the owners of every parcel that signed the petition that's within the 500-foot, so you can get the 20% of the area in the 500-foot radius. So that doesn't
That's
require
correct.
engineering also, or no?
No, we have more modern tools that allow us to be able to calculate the fractional area of a parcel when only a portion of it hits within that 500-foot radius.
So if it's clear that it's in the record, then I guess it doesn't have to be in the minutes, but I still do, I don't know how we can vote on something if the law is unclear. I don't think it controls us, and I don't agree with the court decision. So I'll be voting against the minutes.
I would just leave it as such, if that's okay. You tell me.
Leaving as is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. We're doing these in tandem. The one thing I saw, I forgot to mention. It was for 1407, the standard. You have,
Inches instead of feet?
no.
Okay, we got that one.
The 830G standard, it's 830G and or these regulations.
Okay,
I would just put and.
Okay.
And or, so it hits both. You know
Okay,
where I am
yep.
with that? 'Cause I don't want an either or thing. I want it to be able to hit 830G and these standards.
Okay.
That would be a request, friendly amendments. Is there any objection to that?
I couldn't hear what you said. What did you say is the friendly amendment?
So in the 1407 regulations, it's listed, one of the things we added was a standard for 830G that the site plan would be for has to comply with 830G. And as the minutes reflect, it's complies with 830G and / or these regulations. And the and or I don't like because it can be, it should be and, so it hits both of them as opposed to potentially the or disjunctive. So I would, it makes it more constrictive, I think. It does. So that's the friendly amendment.
No objection.
I don't object to that. So we will have
Okay,
them
hold
vote. The vote will be reflected though, the 4-3 vote.
Yes, that's gonna go in.
Thank you.
we made that, Commissioner Braun, we made that correction for each of the votes because that were not unanimous. So we appreciate the commissioners calling that out for us, and we did make that correction on all the items that did not have unanimous votes.
Thank you.
With those amendments, any further discussion or we put this to a vote? All those in favor, please say aye or raise your hand. Opposed? And Commissioner Braun, are you only opposed to one of the minutes? Which one?
September 2nd.
Are you in support of September 9th?
That was just the POCD meeting, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm in support of that.
All right. And I apologize, the record's not clear, but Commissioner Siebert is sitting in for, I guess, Commissioner Ford at this point, or elect or Commissioner Harrison. There is only 6 of us. Is Commissioner Collins on?
Yes,
I saw
Okay.
him.
Yes.
All right, so Commissioner Collins, are you up? What was your vote?
I wasn't at the P O C D minutes to, I wasn't at that meeting.
Okay. You abstain to that one, correct? Commissioner Collins?
Yes.
All right, and then that's the September 9th and September 2nd.
Yes, I'm okay with that.
Ms. Harrigan, is that,
Yes.
got it down, okay?
Thank you.
Commissioner Collins and Commissioner Sieber are sitting in for Commissioner Ford and Harrigan.
Harrison.
Excuse me, Harrison. My apologies. Okay. I'm gonna take one item out of turn in our public hearing. C1 zoning and regulation amendment, application of 1477 Congress Street LLC. Et cetera. I'm not gonna read the whole thing. I believe there's been a request to move this this item to September 30th, correct, Ms. Harrigan?
That's correct.
So just so noted in the record that this item C1, application of 1477 Congress Street LLC to add new section 10.19 and then et cetera, I won't read the whole thing, is moved now to September 30th. All right. Going back to old business, I'm gonna call the first three items that are all of the same property together so we can discuss them. We may, depending on how things go, we may vote separately on the items, but let me call them. Unless there's an objection, just to have, I think, an omnibus discussion. They're all fairly related, I think, and should we need to have specific votes, we will. Zoning regulation amendment, application of Pekarsky Investments to establish a new section 40 for a Reef Road housing zone per section 830G of the Connecticut General Statutes. 812, 820 Reef Road and 155 Forest Road, application of Pekarsky Investments to establish a Reef Road housing zone on land presently zoned Residence B. 812, 820 Reef Road and 155 Forest Avenue. Zoning compliance and coastal site plan application of Pekarsky Investments for a 45 unit residential development pursuant to section 830G of the Connecticut General Statutes. Is everybody up to speed?
Yes.
Looks like it that we're here. Commissioner Randolph,
Um,
we're gonna do comments first, I think.
Okay.
Ms. Harrigan, thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna try to speak up because we couldn't find the microphone. So if you have any trouble hearing me, just say something and I'll try to speak louder. 812, 820 Reef Road and 155 Forest Avenue, the proposed affordable housing project for this site has applied for a zoning regulation amendment and a zone change application with a site plan review per the 830G state statute. Although zoning regulations are not required as part of an 830G submittal, the courts have opined for the Beach Road decision that an applicant can submit regulations at their discretion, and the TPZ's burden to review them is held to the same standard as the 830G project. The zone change is not discussed in length here, as it simply complements the applicant's proposed zoning regulation request for the subject parcel by changing the zone. The commission will need to act on these items collectively depending on its deliberation and findings. For the zoning regulation amendments and proposed RRHZ zone change, the proposed zoning regulations section 40 for the Reef Road housing zone amendments are specific to the proposed development site and affordable housing developments that meet the 830G section of the Connecticut General Statutes. Although TPZ staff has suggested renumbering the section number for other requests, as a quote unquote overlay district, affordable housing overlays seem appropriate to place as an appendix in the, of the regulations in the back of the reorganized zoning regulations that went into effect on September 6th. Sections 40.1 through 40.3 are general in nature and reemphasize many of the requirements of 8-30G. Section 40.4, site requirements and location of zone, TPZ staff feels is written to be a bit too broad and is not specific to this property. It presently allows for the overlay zone to be on a minimum 30,000 square foot site with a minimum frontage of 125 feet street frontage on Reef Road that has access to public water and sewer. This entire area is on public water and sewer, and it is not unreasonable to assume that within the stretch of Reef Road parcels on either side of the street, that these could be consolidated to meet this criteria. There are presently 69 properties located on the west side of Reef Road, including the town's DPW parcel, and 56 parcels on the east side of Reef Road, excluding Veterans Park. Per the Beach Road decision, it's appropriate to limit the regulation change to subject parcels only. Therefore, it's suggested to strike out this section and simply substitute the following. 40.4 site requirements and location of zone. Subsection A, the RRHZ shall be located at the properties known as 812 and 820 Reef Road and 155 Forest Avenue. The standards in section 40.5 through 40.9.1 appear to apply specifically to the proposed development and this parcel only. Section 40.9.2 for signage exceeds the limits within the town's current sign requirements in residential zones. As this regulation is not needed to address the needs of affordable housing, TPZ staff suggests the following change in order to be compliant with town standards and limit light glare issues to adjacent structures. Under this section 40.9.2, notwithstanding any other provision provided for in these regulations, signage may be proposed and approved as part of a site plan application pursuant to this section. One building identification sign is allowed with a maximum size of striking out 30 and replacing with 20 square feet. Signs may be located at the first floor height only and externally illuminated with shielding to meet dark sky requirements. The remaining sections 40.10 through 40.12 do not appear to require additional modification. In regards to the proposed zoning regulation amendment, the Connecticut State Department of Energy and Environmental Protection, Connecticut DEEP, submitted comments in regards to this proposal, mirroring the concerns that the proposed regulation was too broad and has potential applicability to too many properties located in the known flooding areas within the special flood hazard area. Connecticut DEEP makes reference to the Connecticut Coastal Management Act, CCMA, in section 22A-92B, subsection B2F of the Connecticut General Statutes that requires the Town Plan and Zoning Commission in their coastal site plan review of proposed zoning regulations to manage coastal hazards to ensure that hazards to life and property are minimized. Connecticut DEEP further indicates that this area and these parcels in the special flood hazard area experienced flooding during Storm Sandy in 2013 and are expected to experience future flooding during larger storm events exacerbated by sea level rise impacts. They have opined on this and other CAM applications before the TPZ Commission that increases in density over existing conditions, even for a non-compliant single-family conversion to a flood-compliant duplex, per what the existing Residence B allows, increases hazards to life and property and is inconsistent with the state statute. This hazard is particularly exacerbated where dry egress is not available that allows for adequate protection to life for evacuation purposes, and CT DEEP recommends a denial of the proposed regulation amendment. Residents have submitted a protest petition, which TP staff originally thought met the statutory requirements for the 20% of the area within the 50-foot radius. However, we did recalculate the submittal, and we determined that there was a slight calculation error on our part. And we determined that there was not enough area represented by the signatures of owners to meet this threshold. As noted by Attorney Russo in his citation of the Branford Housing Authority case decided by Judge Berger at the Superior Court level, there is some dispute as to whether a protest petition can be submitted for an 830G affordable housing case. Per the Beach Road decision, the standard considerations for denial of a regulation amendment for an affordable project per the 830G statutes are: the burden shall be on the commission to prove that the decision is based on sufficient evidence in the record. The decision is necessary to protect a public interest in health, safety, or other matters within the commission's jurisdiction. Such interests clearly outweigh the need for affordable housing, and such public interests cannot be protected by reasonable changes to the proposed development. Court cases have indicated that the record must establish more than a mere possibility of harm to a substantial public interest. The record must contain evidence as to a quantifiable probability that a specific harm will result if the application is granted. Mere concerns alone do not amount to sufficient evidence to support the denial of an affordable housing application. Moving on to the 830G site plan and coastal site plan application. The subject site is 35,592 square feet in size and is presently located in the Residence B zone, which permits single-family structures for lots that meet a 6,000 square foot minimum, and duplexes where lots are a minimum of 9,000 square feet in size. The site is presently developed with 2 duplexes and a vacant undeveloped parcel in the rear at 155 Forest Avenue, as well as a detached garage. The proposed 45-unit U-shaped multifamily apartment building per the 830G statute is comprised of 3 residential stories over 1 level of garage parking that also has the building entry and mailroom. A common deck area is located in the center of the building on the parking deck, with other common areas that include a laundry room, lounge area, meeting room, and gym. The site is relatively flat, and the project provides 64 parking spaces within the garage and the surface parking lot to the rear. The building is comprised predominantly of 36 520 square foot 2-bedroom units with 6 1-bedroom units and 3 studios. As an 830G project, 30% of the proposed 45 units or 14 units will be deed restricted affordable for a period of 40 years, 7 units at 60% area median income, and 7 units at 80% AMI. This must be equally distributed by size and unit type throughout the building. In terms of coastal site plan and flood zone considerations, the properties are located in the special flood hazard area, AE 11 and AE 13. The parcels are also located in the limit of moderate wave action zone, where 1.5 to 3 foot high wave action is anticipated. The deeper flood zone requirements apply to the property where existing site grades range to about elevation 5.5 in the rear and elevation 6 for the properties located on Reef Road. The elevation of Reef Road itself is approximately elevation 4 to 4.5. This means that during a 100-year storm event, that flooding heights are expected to be at a flood depth of 8.5 feet on Reef Road, 7 to 7.5 feet deep at the location of the building, and approximately 7.5 feet deep in the proposed rear parking lot. This area has been subject to significant flooding in the past and will continue to experience flooding events in the future. There are no direct coastal resources on any of the proposed project areas. There are tidal marshland areas located approximately 170 feet to the rear of the proposed parking lot adjacent to Forest Avenue, and approximately 250 feet away on the town's property that leads to the wastewater treatment facility off One Rod Highway. The construction itself does not appear to have anticipated impacts to adjacent coastal resources. The applicant's experts have indicated that the WPC approval has been granted to connect into the town's sewer system, and public water supply is available at the site. The stormwater system has been designed to accommodate the 1-year storm event. Sediment and erosion controls are shown on the applicant's sediment and erosion control plan dated 9/3/2024 and revised to 1/28/2025, prepared by Cusidis Engineering LLC. The applicant has indicated that adequate site distance is provided on Reef Road for the proposed driveway. The proposed building provides a full interior sprinkler system, and the fire marshal's office department has indicated that access meets current fire code requirements. There are no inland wetland or upland review areas on the property, therefore inland wetlands review is not needed. The Economic Development Director has recommended some changes to the final affordable housing plan provided, which can be completed prior to recording the required deed restriction on the property prior to the issuance of the building permit. The landscape plan shown on the applicant's sheet LP1 dated January 10th, 2025, prepared by Environmental Land Solutions LLC, provides screening around the building and the parking area in the rear. Neighbor testimony expressed concerns about safety, increased trips generated by the development, lack of adequate parking should the apartments be occupied by students, and a lack of on-street parking due to significant student rentals in the area. Neighbors also expressed concerns about the significant scale of the building relative to other buildings in the area. Similar to its comments on the proposed text amendment, the Connecticut State Department of Energy and Environmental Protection, Connecticut DEEP, submitted separate comments in regards to the coastal site plan review. Connecticut DEEP again makes reference to the Connecticut Coastal Management Act in section 22A-92 B2F of the Connecticut General Statutes that requires the Town Plan and Zoning Commission in their coastal site plan review of the site plans and project to manage coastal hazard areas to ensure that hazards to life and property are minimized. Connecticut DEEP reiterates for all the reasons previously mentioned in the zoning regulation request that the site development plan per the CCMA is inconsistent with mitigation of hazards, with the mitigation of hazard standard to life, specifically mentioning Storm Sandy's approximate 9 feet of flood depth, which would have resulted in approximately 4 feet of flooding in this location, and they recommend denial of the project. As stated in this and prior correspondence, they view significant increases in potential density as increased hazard to the lives of the increased numbers of potential people living in a known hazard area. Based on Commissioner concerns and questions, TPZ staff requested information from both the Building Department and the Health Department regarding the size of bedrooms required for occupancy purposes. They have indicated that bedroom size for apartment buildings is required to be 70 square feet for a single occupant or 50 square feet for each occupant if there's more than one person residing in the bedroom, or 100 square feet for a bedroom with 2 occupants. This square footage must exclude the area for closets. The current configuration of the 2-bedroom, 520 square foot units appear to contain bedrooms of only approximately 76 square feet, which would allow only 1 occupant per bedroom. The Commission is familiar with the standards for review of a denial of an affordable housing application, and those standards were discussed during the hearing. The burden shall be on the Commission to prove that the decision is based on sufficient evidence in the record. The decision is necessary to protect a public interest in health, safety, or other matters within the Commission's jurisdiction. Such interests clearly outweigh the need for affordable housing, and such public interest cannot be protected by reasonable changes to the proposed development. Let me skip the last part. Should the Commission determine that approval of the project is warranted, TPZ staff recommends the following conditions. 1, changes to the proposed zoning regulations to the Reef Road housing zone as indicated in the staff comments. 2, parking spaces within the garage be specifically assigned by unit in order to provide clear direction to tenants as to which cars should be parking in which location, so that thereby reducing unnecessary added trip generation in and around the site. The proposed project must fully meet all requirements of the LIMWA AE design standards for design flood elevation of 14. The engineering department requires observation of test holes, soils testing in order to confirm accuracy of soil classifications and percolation rates, in order to confirm the adequacy of the proposed stormwater system prior to issuance of the building permit. And lastly, a deed restriction for the set-aside development must be recorded on the land records prior to issuance of the building permit and is subject to final review by the Department of Economic and Community Development prior to filing.
Thank you, Ms. Harrigan. I have a motion. Commissioner Randolph.
Yes, I move to deny without prejudice, given certain, and I'll specify specific reasons.
See if we get a second. Is there a second? Commissioner Siebert. Commissioner Randolph.
I've got this in writing, Jody.
Okay.
After reviewing the full record, including staff reports, public testimony, FEMA flood mapping, and the July 8th letter from the Connecticut Department of Energy and Environmental Protection, DEEP, the Commission, I make the following findings. The subject properties are located in the FEMA Special Flood Zone hazard areas AE 11 and AE 13. In the limit of moderate wave action zone, Deeps determined that this proposal and I quote, represents a significant increase in hazard to life and property, would knowingly put people in harm's way, unquote. Reef Road experienced 7 to 9 feet of flooding during Superstorm Sandy, and these parcels lack dry egress in future storm events. The application provides for 64 parking spaces for 45 units and 81 bedrooms. The record supports a likely demand of 90 more vehicles. Overflow parking into Veterans Park and surrounding streets would increase congestion and further impede safe evacuation in a flood. The applicant has not provided a dry egress or evacuation plan, despite being requested this by Deep. They've not addressed Deep's concerns and has not proposed alternate site designs, reduce density, or increase parking to mitigate these hazards. Under the Connecticut Supreme Court's decision, Kaufman versus Danbury, a commission may deny an 830G application if 4 conditions are met. 1, sufficient evidence. 2, substantial public interest. 3, an interest that clearly outweighs the housing need. And 4, the absence of reasonable modifications. Applying that test, there's sufficient evidence in the record, specifically Deep's expert testimony, to demonstrate a quantifiable probability of harm. As confirmed in Riverbend Associates versus Simsbury, expert evidence is required and it is present here. Number 2, protection of life and safety in a coastal flood hazard area is a substantial public interest consistent with Christian Activities Council versus Glastonbury. This interest clearly outweighs the incremental affordable housing benefit of this specific site. Additionally, despite being requested, no reasonable modifications are in the record that would mitigate this hazard. As held in JPI Partners versus Milford, the burden is on the applicant to propose alternatives, which they failed to do. The commission is not required to supply them. For these reasons, I recommend that the commission denies this application without prejudice. This really does not foreclose future development, and I invite resubmittal addressing the following: a detailed dry egress and evacuation plan for all residents and vehicles as specified by Deep. It's number 1. Number 2, a parking plan proportionate to likely vehicle demand with unit-specific assignments and site design modifications consistent with Deep's hazard guidance, including density reductions if necessary. This would ensure that the commission has fulfilled its obligation under 830G to balance the need for affordable housing with equally compelling duty to protect life and safety. That's all I have.
Thank you. Commissioner Siebert.
I second Commissioner Randolph's comments and support changes.
Commissioner Braun.
I adopt and agree with all of the comments made by both commissioners. I have a few more to add. One is I don't believe we should be modifying proposed regulations because according to, and I don't know how the commission's going to vote on this, so I just wanted to point out 8-3 of the statutes basically says a copy of the proposed regulations shall be filed in the office of the town and the town clerk and available for public inspection at least 10 days before the public hearing on new regulations. So when you have a copy that's available for public inspection, we should not then go and change that before we adopt it. And I think the changes being proposed to make this more palatable, whether it's to satisfy DEP by saying you can't include half the neighborhood in this regulation, or other suggestions for improvements suggested by staff, those are substantive changes. Those are not just little grammar things. And I think that would violate 8-3 to make this type of significant change, regardless of who it favors or who it might favor, or whether we think it's better or worse, more restrictive, not. We should not be making changes to regulations once they're noticed. So that's one comment I have. And I just want to point out another comment relating to the DEP report. DEP is quite quantified, and that's always an issue when things go to court. How quantified is the harm? Well, DEP also pointed out it's a 440% increase in density. Approximately 15 people might use the 2 duplexes that are on this 3 parcel site now, but it would go up to probably 81 at least. And even if only 1 person can stay in a bedroom based on bedroom size, we all know this is a university area. It's been discussed, by the neighbors at length. And that's why there's such an overflow parking problem to begin with. You can anticipate those rules not being followed, and more than 81. So the 81 bedrooms, the DEP pointed out in their report, you can anticipate more than 81 people. But with just 81, that's a 440% increase in density. And you don't want to be adding to the hazard of human life by putting all those people in the flood zone without egress. So based on those items, I would just supplement what the other commissioners said. I have one question for Ms. Harrigan, though. Aren't they supposed to go for a 100-year storm, the stormwater system, instead of a 1-year storm? When they do their stormwater analysis?
And the engineering reviewed it and was satisfied with the proposed system minus the observing on-site percolation tests.
But isn't the 100-year storm what we work towards? That it has to provide no more water leaving the site after development in a 100-year storm versus a 1-year storm?
I don't think it's a 100-year storm. I think it's a smaller storm. Depends on the proximity of my understanding, and I'm not a licensed engineer by any stretch of the imagination, is it depends on the location of the system.
Okay, I understand that. And then just one other point. We not only expose the people residing in this resident to a hazard to human life, which again, our coastal site area review is different than a FEMA review. And I'm sure Ms. Harrigan will agree. FEMA mostly has to do with structures. So you can put the bottom floor high enough up, but that does not solve the problem of the hazard to human life that adding this level of density would pose, not just the people living in this project, and any rules or regulations or notification requirements would not solve that. It would still be adding to the hazard to the people living there, but also the neighbors nearby. The overflow parking situation would be pandemonium. And then the first responders. At a prior hearing, I heard once the firemen can actually drown when they fall into the manhole covers because they get lifted during a storm. There's significant risk to everybody involved. So I totally agree we should not be granting this, but I would say we should deny this with prejudice, not without prejudice. Thank you.
If you don't mind, I may jump in. Want to go?
Go ahead.
So we've seen a lot of 830Gs in the past few years, and in reviewing this application with the other ones that we've seen, using similar criteria that we've all been very used to, not just the standards, but also looking at density and traffic and unit counts and everything else, we've been discussing. It just strikes me that this project put in any other place in town outside of the flood zone would likely be approved by this commission. And the reasons that I think are the 2 predominant reasons as to why at least the motion for denial is put out there, and for fair reasons, I think. But 2 reasons I think are: 1, a fear of students being in that building to increase the occupancy. I think without a doubt that consideration is speculative inherently and will not pass any muster in court. And by all accounts, it's just speculative. You don't know what's going to be in there. They said they're going to not advertise to students. It looks like a regular apartment building to me. And there's a way to address that with a condition of approval with the building permit. I think they have to put a special code in there for residential, and I think there's a way of handling that. But regardless, I think that's speculative. The other issue is obviously the flood and the increased density in that flood zone. And Deep was very clear in its letter. But to me, it raises very many concerns, and we're potentially setting a precedent for this area that I don't think the residents will ultimately like. what's telling to me is that deep is not just saying that this increase of density to 40 units or 45 is the problem. But as Ms. Harrigan said, any increase in density, we've had issues with the nearby Navy, right, Navy housing that's single family that's trying to be moved to duplexes, and DEEP has taken the same position with threat to life and safety in a flood zone when going from 1 to 2 units. And so we don't have that position. We don't take that position in our regulations. It is obviously 830G doesn't, abide by our regulations for density and stuff, but it does for duplexes and the like in that area. And we allow for development in this flood zone at the current time. So if we were to deny this application based on that reasoning, I think that violates our regulations, and that would be, I'm not sure how well that will go in court. Anytime we make a decision, even in 830G, we've been saying this for the last 2 major projects we had with Circle Inn and the Post Road, is if we're gonna make a denial for based on a reason, it better be in our regulations. And certainly we have some authority with respect to managing coastal resources, but therein lies another problem. This is however many, yards or most of a half a mile up the street, it has no impact on coastal resources. But then DEEP is using a statute regarding management of coastal resources to avoid harm when there's no impact on coastal resources. It is again, just looking at this as an increase in density. And regardless of whether we think about it in our planning capacity, we are under the 830G context. And I think we are setting a potentially bad precedent that we will abide by this DEEP decision in this instance. Then somebody comes down the pike and wants to add an ADU or make it into a duplex for gentle density, which I think this commission has talked about. And we're gonna get a similar decision from DEEP. And we're gonna be put in the exact same situation. Oh, but there's a difference, 45 units versus an increase to 1 or 2. To me, the same threats to life, health, welfare, and safety is when you go from 1 to 2, or even to the current landowners or residents down in that area as far as flooding. And to me, it's like how we normally see with traffic. Yes, it's a very busy street on these side streets that we see. And now we're gonna put a 45, 50 unit in there. Look how bad that of an increase that is. Well, to me, it just strikes me that the analogy is too similar, where we say that the streets can hold it, but in this case, it strikes me that the increase in density or the exact same threats to life, health, and welfare and safety that are for the existing residents would be the exact same for them, and the increase of potentially 40 extra units net just to me is another drop in the bucket, and similar how we do with traffic. So it just strikes me that DEEP is interpreting this statute in a new way. And I am always very hesitant about any body taking an existing statute, broad statute, and using it in a different way without legislative input on that. Especially again, when we're not going to be seeing it just on 830Gs, we're going to be seeing it potentially on any new developments. And I think we don't set precedent, that's pretty clear. We at the same time like to be fair and consistent with the application of our decisions. And I think we really need to think twice about whether we are going to deny this based on DEEP's concerns. And I'm not saying they're invalid, but I think there's more implications than this than just avoiding an 830G application, which many people would probably prefer, but I think is potentially losing a war. In losing the war and winning a battle potentially. The applicant has offered an evacuation plan. I think is more than a sufficient reasonable modification. Maybe the residents won't abide by it, but that's inherent with that down there. Again, this is up the street, well away from the coast. It's not gonna be impacted by waves. It's elevated well above the flood zone, so by all accounts, people could stay in the house and wait out the flood. Just take a look at my notes. And as to Deep's concern that it's too broad, well, that's an easy fix. We have Supreme Court precedent saying we can just apply this to the current parcel. Commissioner Braun, I disagree with you. We regularly amend regulation proposals as long as we stay within the footprints and scaling things back within the footprint. That is a common tactic that we have done, and I have had no indication that that is any way violative of 8.3. So, I mean, again, no reasonable modifications record, in the record. Well, I mean, again, according to Deep, no new density is going to be allowed potentially. So I don't know what reasonable modifications are there when Deep is basically taking that position. And again, the harm is inherent, all the residents in that area. And I think we need to be looking at what does the increase of an extra 40 units do? How does that increase the harm? And to me, it's the exact same harm, whether it's a duplex, whether it's a 40 units. It's up the street. It's not down Beach Road all the way at the end where there's a potential real issue of traffic and getting out. It's already up the street. So if density really is a problem, it just strikes me that that's the right spot potentially for it if it has to be there. So, I mean, for all those reasons, more concerning one being that precedent we're setting with adopting the Deep suggestion or Deep's position. This strikes me as an application. Again, we need to deny, or we need to grant, as we've done consistently in the past, when it meets the appropriate criteria. And again, I'll end with how I started. I think if this application was anywhere in town, this commission would likely grant it based on what I see as our past rulings. And I'd be very also concerned about basically us telling the town, not only are 830Gs probably not going to go in the northwest of town because of lack of infrastructure. That place is that area. Some areas of town are immune from 830Gs dense projects because of lack of infrastructure, sewers and water. Now we're saying the beach district and flood areas is off limits too. And I just don't know how fair that really is, considering everything I've said. So for that reason, I will be voting to approve it. So voting in the negative of the current motion. I would urge my commissioners to think that as well, to adopt that as well. Commissioner Levy?
Thank you. Well, this is one I've struggled with since day one. I mean, we need more housing, we need more affordable housing, and I'm a strong proponent for achieving that end. I also appreciate and very much in favor of the fact that we have an 830G application, which is other than east of North Benson Road, in an area of town where we haven't had 830Gs. I'm also aware, since I live in the area, in terms of the Quincy Street, former military housing, and that there are plans afoot to turn properties there, which are not flood compliant, into flood compliant duplexes, which would provide more affordable housing in an area that definitely needs it. But I'm also aware that we have an obligation under the Connecticut Coastal Management Act. And I don't know if there are any cases on it, but as I review it, while 830G, I think, for instance, trumps 8.3 and any of the voting requirements there on a supermajority or the number of commissioners needed to approve a regulation amendment, I don't think that is the case when we have an application both under the Connecticut Coastal Management Act and under 830G, and our responsibilities under each are separate and distinct. I can assure you that if this were not in a floodplain, I would approve it in a flash. Absolutely no doubt in my mind. I'm not wild about the size of the bedrooms, but that in and itself would not create a substantial concern to my mind. Nor do I see this under the Connecticut Coastal Management Act as presenting any significant environmental harm. It's far enough away from any inland wetlands, any coastal resources, anything of that nature where there's going to be no direct negative environmental impact. But my concern is with the density. And I mean, part of our responsibility under the Connecticut Coastal Management Act is to, evaluate and balance growth and environmental concerns in these sensitive areas. And I mean, and the record reflects that during Storm Sandy, there's 9 feet of water, which would have been about 4 feet of water here. One can also, I can recall nor'easters in 91 and 92, when people in this area were brought out of the area in bucket loaders. And even with, modern forecasting, or at least what we had back then, the one in 91 came as a surprise to all of us. So there's, I would not expect that to happen today. You never know. In terms of evacuation, that could present a substantial, presents a substantial concern. So I've gone back and forth. We're outside. I'm not concerned about precedent because our zoning regulations for this area would, for instance, allow 2 duplexes. It's unfortunate that one of the duplexes that's on the property was just built 7 years ago and is a very, and I don't know if I'd say it's attractive, but it's certainly a very functional duplex. It may not meet the current FEMA height, but it's pretty close. And, this project will involve tearing down what would otherwise probably be about $1.5 million, structure, but so be it. That's for the cost benefit for the developer, who's looking at this property. The other property, a little dated and needs substantial remediation. So where does that leave me? I've gone back and forth. A part of me wants to approve it as is, consistent with our, past approach, then unless I can show quantifiable evidence as a substantial likelihood of harm. What I do know is there's a substantial likelihood of a flood. No ifs, ands, or buts, whether it be this year or within 10 years, there is a substantial likelihood that there will be a significant flood in the area. The advantage, one might say, is, well, now at least we have a FEMA compliant building. The disadvantage is we might well have about 90 cars, in this area, which even though the town has recently upgraded Reef Road in this area with new sidewalks and paving, that could impose an impediment or a potential harm for the entire area in terms of that many vehicles and that many people trying to evacuate all at once. And that's the rub, the density here. One might say that it's speculative as to whether or not we're going to get students living here. As commissioners, we bring our life's experience and our familiarity with the neighborhood. We don't leave that at the door. And there's little doubt, do I expect this to be a dormitory with 100% students? No. But would I be surprised, or would I fully anticipate that there will be a student component there and it might be significant? Yeah, who else wants to live in, a tiny bedroom like this? Now, the proposal is to deny without prejudice, and there are various suggestions as to what could come back to us. It would require, I guess, that it be resubmitted within the appeal period with, appropriate amendments to address these concerns. In my mind, the concern is not the environmental, the stormwater, not even the traffic per se. My only concern, and the only one I think needs to be addressed, is the density. Now, how can that be addressed? I mean, one solution might be to simply make the 2-bedroom units 1-bedrooms. That might be a bit of a problem with the configuration with the windows here. But it would basically mean that the 36 2-bedroom units would now be 1-bedroom units. That's a possibility that the developer could, we could make as a possible condition. The other would be to reduce it by 1 floor. That would limit 14 units. The impact of that, or the concern that it addresses, is basically the relationship between the density and the number of cars that one anticipates in this area. If this was an area other than a floodplain, the neighborhood could adjust to the on-street parking. But here, if you had on-street parking on both sides of Reef Road, as I expect you would, that could pose a potential bottleneck and could pose a serious safety concern. And I think that would be, as Deep says, a potential risk to life and property. And while they want us to minimize that risk, my concern is simply to control it. I mean, there are various extremes. After the flood, I think it was in 38, Watch Hill, Rhode Island banned all rebuilding. As a result, there's about a 2-mile stretch of beach in Watch Hill, which once was covered by huge, and I mean huge, Victorians, which literally floated out to sea after that storm. And it also created Napattree Harbor, which had previously been an inland lake area. So, I mean, nature does what nature does, but I'm not, that's just not going to fly here. And I don't think in connection with a single application, I'm not going to put on my planning hat and address an issue as to whether or not rebuilding or what limitations should be put on rebuilding in the beach area. But at the same time, it doesn't mean that I'm simply going to rubber stamp what's before me on the 830G while I have an obligation under the Connecticut Coastal Management Act. We're outside any standards or regulations. 830G by its very nature is outside of any rule or regulation that we've either promulgated or contained in the state statutes. So it's a little bit, the illusion that unfortunately comes to mind is Goldilocks. Is it too big, too small, or just right? And to my mind, what would be just right here, which would be an increase in density, which I could approve, would be reducing it by 1/3. And that could either be by reducing the number of bedrooms or by reducing the number of units by about 1/3. So, my inclination would be to approve it with reasonable accommodations of turning either the 36 2-bedroom units into 1-bedroom units, which would also then deal better with the minimum bedroom size issue. Or alternatively, the developer might consider eliminating 14 units by taking off making it 2 floors of 1. What would that do would be to reduce the density, but at the same time, maintaining the existing parking ratio, or not maintaining the ratio, would increase the ratio so that you would have much more off-street parking, which would be commensurate with this specific area. Anywhere else in town, I wouldn't worry about the parking. In fact, anywhere else in town, in some areas, I'd say you don't even need parking standards. It'll take care of itself. The market speaks. But in this particular case, because of all of those concerns, I am worried about the ratio between the number of units or the number of people and the number of vehicles that are going to be in an area, which hopefully within my lifetime, well, not hopefully, but within my lifetime, there's likely to be another substantial flood. So while my inclination was, if I had been making the amendment, would be to approve it with those 2 conditions, I can support the denial as long as it's very clear that we're asking the developer to come back with a reasonable accommodation that would address this density issue. Or alternatively, and I leave it to my fellow commissioners, they could withdraw the motion, make it an approval with those conditions, and then it would only be up to the court as to whether or not our reasonable accommodation appropriately dealt with legitimate concerns, public safety, health and safety. But that might be semantic, I'm not sure.
Thank you. Commissioner Corsillo?
Thank you. So I don't usually wait until the last to speak, and then I think that's because, like you, I agree, this is a difficult application. I agree with Commissioners Levy and Noonan that if this was anywhere else, it would be a straightforward approval. I think lots of concerns, lots of valid concerns are raised about existing conditions. I think I say this just about every 830G application, that existing conditions are not a grounds for denial of an 830G application. And so, the question is about flooding. I think there's a valid planning discussion that we should have about whether we should be building or rebuilding in disaster-prone areas, period. Not just dense housing, but anything. But we are not in a planning process right now. We're acting in a judicial capacity with regards to one project and one application. So in my mind, the question comes back to, with regards to flooding specifically, the question of the quantifiable probability of specific harm. I think Commissioner Levy said it well, that there's clearly a quantifiable probability that there will flood. Second part to that is there a quantifiable probability of specific harm as a result of that? And where I think it becomes difficult is the question of the population of this building. I tend to agree with Commissioner Noonan that we can't speculate about students living here, even if we think that's likely to happen. The other question that I think adds to the complexity of this, which again, I think Commissioner Levy raised, is we currently approve applications that increase density above what is currently there, above single-family homes, above duplexes. And so at what point, what is the threshold at which a development in this zone poses a quantifiable, a probable threat to public health or safety that outweighs the need for affordable housing? It's clearly not 1 or 2 units, because those are there, or at least according, in terms of, in so much as we have grounds to deny a project. So is it 3? Is it 5 units? Is it 10 units? Is it 20 units? I think it's hard to make up a number without appearing arbitrary. And I haven't seen any evidence that points to a specific point at which a project becomes that threat to public health or safety. So then I think ultimately it comes down to even if we believe that that there is a quantifiable threat to public health or safety posed by the flood risk, and I think where I see it, if there is a threat, it is about the evacuation in a potential flood. How to, I think we do have an obligation when possible to impose conditions, reasonable accommodations. The question in my mind is, what is an accommodation that would not only address it, but is reasonable? I think there are a number of potential ways to address the evacuation in a flood concerns. Commissioner Levy noted one, which could be to require that all the units are one bedroom. I think Commissioner Randolph alluded to some other possibilities. Maybe it's an overall density change. Maybe it has to do with amending the parking plan. Maybe it has to do with amending an evacuation plan. And this is where I struggle with, is it more appropriately an approval with conditions or a denial without prejudice? And I think one factor that had me coming into this leaning toward a denial without prejudice is it does give the applicant some flexibility to come back to us with a condition that is viable and addresses the concern. At the same time, I've found some of the other comments persuasive in terms of if we impose a condition, then it's really incumbent on the applicant to then appeal and say, no, this is not viable. And then the judge ultimately would make a determination on that. So where does that leave me? I'm not really sure.
Commissioner Randolph, and then Braun.
Yeah, thank you for letting me speak again. Appreciate the thoughtful comments and really the reflection on the challenge of this project. I too agree that if this project were in a different part of town, it wouldn't, in my mind, there would be no question that we would approve it, but we're supposed to look at quantifiable harm. And given its location in the part of town, we all agree that egress, that this is a flood prone area, deep is identified, this is a flood prone area. And there is a quantifiable harm due to the flooding. Like to reiterate or emphasize my agreement with some of the other comments that this is not, my reason for denying this without prejudice is not because of any environmental impact of the wetlands or coastal management issues. I don't even think density is the issue here. The issue is the absence of a thorough review. The information presented by this team was incomplete. The architect claimed that the size of these units was market. They did not do their research. The engineer and traffic engineer said he did not know students were in this part of town. That's on the record. That's unconscionable. The application is incomplete. We're supposed to review and make a decision on the of the information presented. In denial without prejudice, I'm offering the opportunity to the applicant to address the issues specifically raised by DEEP for egress on the site. Our job is not to play architect. I'm an architect. If we propose specific conditions, there's a good chance of unintended consequences. If we say, turn it to one bedrooms, do this. These are complicated projects. It is not our job to design this project. Our job is to review the information presented, and this was a sloppy application. So I'm asking them to come back with a more thorough application with adequate information so we can render a decision. And that's the reasonable accommodation we're making, is say, come back to us, address these issues. I agree with Commissioner Noonan's issue that this will set some sort of precedent, but I don't know if density is the issue. If they can address these issues, I'm open to reviewing that. And it's the responsibility of the applicant to address these issues. They provided no alternatives. These issues were raised. They willfully ignored DEEP's comments. And perhaps that was their intention because they didn't think they could address them. But I'm asking that they come back and address the three things I said: a detailed dry egress and evacuation plan for all residents and vehicles. I've got it in writing. A parking plan proportionate to likely vehicle demand, not because of inconvenience or students, but because it will potentially impede egress on and we're close to the beach here. We are very close to the beach and we're in a flood area. So it's not that we're close to non-flooding area, and potentially submit site and design modifications consistent with DEEP's hazard guidance. And they may not, I don't think we can fully address DEEP. I don't think we can fully address 830G concurrently, but we could reach a compromise. And the information that's been presented to us doesn't allow us to make a judgment. So come back to us with a proposal.
Commissioner Braun.
I just first want to point out that, regarding precedent, I don't think that should be a concern of ours. We have to do our own public hearing with a project-specific, site-specific review. Other projects might be different, and I don't think we should be fearful that the court will go through every decision we've ever made and said, well, you approved a duplex down the road, so why did you deny this? This is an order of magnitude different than a duplex. Again, it's 440% more bedrooms than what is there now. That itself poses the hazard. The prior precedents that we have in court on Beach Road and Umpqua Road, those were zoning regulations. I think that the court didn't like that we were using a different standard, or a standard that wasn't set forth in our zoning regs on whether we could consider parked cars when looking at sightline. That's specifically within the zoning area. Coastal site plan review is not a zoning law. Zoning laws are Title 8. Coastal site plan is environmental, that's Title 22A. And the coastal site plan review is completely different, and we have to follow that. And DEP does not change their interpretation of the law. They just have their own expert opinion that they've given us that this is going to pose a hazard to the public. And they were very clear that they are correctly interpreting the statute. Other letter, they've actually written letters to us when I started here 4 or 5 years ago, we were getting letters saying sea levels will rise 20 inches by 2050. So be careful what you put down there in that area. But they were very specific with metrics and what the coastal site plan review process is. And that is what we are doing on behalf of that statute, completely separate from 8-30G. So DEP points out that all these parcels contain coastal hazard areas. They're all within, they have a limit, within the limit of moderate wave action during a flood. They're also only 400 feet from a tidally influenced tidal wetland system and less than half a mile from Long Island Sound. It would also contain, 81 units, again, which is a 440% increase to the existing number of bedrooms. I'm sorry, 81 bedrooms. And then they point out that the statute 22A-92, parentheses B, parentheses 2, parentheses F of the Coastal Management Act charges the town, TPZ, basically to carry out what the state wants us to do. Separate from 830G. Again, we're carrying out an environmental statute here. And the quotation is to manage coastal hazard area to ensure that hazards to life and property are minimized. So this is a separate part of the Coastal Management Act, separate from protecting resources, but it's just equally as important, and it's in the statute. Then that's what we have to carry out. And they're saying, well, you can build this to meet the first floor elevation requirements. The policy behind that statute, the public policy, is more conservative than the FEMA rules about protecting the property because it requires minimizing adverse impact to life as well as property. And it goes on to say, this is the DEP letter, that they point out the history here. This area of Reef Road had sustained flooding and damage after her Superstorm Sandy, blocked by a police line at Lynn Street, which is a 1/4 mile inland than this parcel. The photos that they presented showed standing water on Reef Road at the corner of Quincy, which is still further inland from here. And Sandy was not a hurricane when it hit, but most of the damage is caused by storm surge, which is recorded at 9 feet at the tide gauge in Bridgeport. This is an area that could sustain 8 feet of storm surge right here on this parcel. So based on that alone, I don't think we have a choice but to protect human life and to not add 80 to 90 to 100 people down there. You cannot protect them by saying we have an evacuation plan. It can't be done. So based on that, I don't think we have a choice. We cannot approve it as it is. We would be then willingly putting people in harm's way. And again, not just the people that live there, but the neighbors. And by the way, adding more cars to the parking garage won't solve anything, because that parking garage will be subject to flooding, and every single person with a car will remove their car. And there will be a chaotic situation of everyone congesting the streets, trying to get out of there with their car, so their car doesn't get damaged. Thank you.
I mean, listen, we've heard the language with traffic before. You add X amount on this minor street and type stuff. And we've rejected that in the past, and I reject it now. I'm not putting anybody there. It's whoever wants to go there, knowing the risks if they just choose to go into the building. And, you know, when it comes to coastal considerations, it's not, if you are gonna follow deep from now on, because I mean, we've gotten another instance already, and Ms. Harrigan identified it with going from a single family to a duplex, and the same rationale was provided for one extra density. We are now gonna see in this coastal area, for the same reason, regardless of the new increase in density, whether it be ADU or one single family to duplex, the exact same response from Deep. And to me, this is a new well, I don't think it's anything different, new, not my interpretation. I think Ms. Harrigan noted it herself, that this is a new policy. They've used existing law that hasn't been, you know, as you noted, Commissioner Braun, 5 years ago, we were getting high sea level rises, but we were getting generally approvals from them. Now we're getting something different, where it's just in their mind, a complete prohibition, which is not just on coastal management, but affects the zoning regulations, because now in their mind, no building can go there, which contradicts our own zoning regs. So there's no doubt that the harm is flooding. That's the potential flooding, but the harm is the same. It's inherent and intrinsic in the area, regardless if there's duplexes on that property or a big 40-unit building. The question is the extra units, well, by units, not bedrooms. We always like to try and change that, but it's by units. Well, by whether that is a sufficient increase. And yes, extra people are going to be there, but if there's going to be an evacuation of, I don't know how many people are down there, but I'll guess thousands, does 40 increase in such a way that we should deny it? Does it outweigh the need for affordable housing? And to me, it doesn't. It just, as I think most people said, we would prove this anywhere else. And I just don't want to be in the position of telling the town that, you know, 830Gs are not allowed in the beach area anymore. And for all the reasons I said earlier. And I'll just say this. I mean, I thought the application was fine. I didn't think it was incomplete, regardless of the person. You know, the person didn't know that there were students in the area. I mean, it was, as they said, it wasn't meant for students in their mind. Will that become the case or not? I mean, I think again, it goes back to the speculation aspect of it. Could it? I mean, because we have our common experience, well, at least common knowledge of the experiences down there. I mean, maybe, but Ms. Harrigan just noted the guess whatever the regulations are with 70 square feet in the bedrooms and only one occupant being there. So I mean, in many respects, that's protected. I don't know what Commissioner Marindorf, you're talking about with market size and stuff. I mean, even if there was a market analysis that showed the average market rate is 100 square foot bedrooms, and this one's at 70, that's just of no import to me. They provided parking based on regular IT, which, you know, at least that kind of analysis, you always see that. I think that's more the student concern seeping in. As far as conditions of approval for granting, if you want to knock it down, no 2 bedrooms, that's fine. 1 bedroom studios, come back with I mean, I guess that's okay. I mean, I would say I think the evacuation plan is fine, because as you said, I mean, people will go either go or not go, and that's the same for current residents themselves, who are again in the same inherent risk and that we're citing for this new development. So I won't belabor the point. Commissioner Levy.
Yeah, just one more point. I mean, I'm not concerned about Deep taking an absolute position, which seems to be that there should be no additional development in flood-prone areas. Because if the legislature wanted deep to make these decisions, they wouldn't have left it with us. And I see our role more as a balancing role, not an absolute where we need to take a position that for the protection of life and limb and property, there's no development within a flood-prone area. I don't think we're required to take that position under the Connecticut Coastal Management Act. Our job is to balance, basically balance the environmental concerns with regulating appropriate development. And again, my problem here, elsewhere, on every 830G, we hear it's too big. Well, too big is not a basis for denial of an 830G as far as I'm concerned. But being too big in a flood-prone area, well, that changes the balance slightly for me. And I think for me, it's just a question of balancing. If they were to eliminate roughly 30 bedrooms, I could live with that. That might be an accommodation. I'd prefer to approve it with a reasonable accommodation and give them various options. We could spell them out, or I can live with a denial with a hope that they would come back with a reasonable accommodation. I don't feel that the application was incomplete. I'm not concerned about the traffic study or what the market rate. I am concerned about the size of these bedrooms and what that might, what the implications are there. But the real concern is just the ratio between the potential number of people and the number of additional cars that are going to be in this area. And that's where I think the balance shifts. The ratio is just not acceptable. So either it's more parking, which I don't know that there's room for, or fewer units. A reasonable accommodation, I think, could be made and still have this be a very viable project. And, and it could be frankly a place where teachers and police and fire would very happily live in the beach area. And it would be my hope that we could provide that there. So I've belabored the point enough. It's just a question of balancing. And I think a reasonable accommodation is easily within everybody's grasp.
All right, Commissioner Corso, then I want to get a lay of the land.
And this is getting to that really, because I think I could live with an approval with conditions along the lines of what Commissioner Levy was suggesting. I guess for me, it's a question of what does a condition that gives options look like? I'm not sure if Commissioner Levy has a suggestion on that, because we typically give multiple conditions on unrelated items, not a single condition that includes options for one concern. So I don't know if Commissioner Levy has a suggestion on that. It's something conceptually I'd be open to.
Well, let me ask this. I think the thought is we have a motion to deny without prejudice on the table. It strikes me that maybe it might be worth seeing where we are with that first before we outline maybe conditions of approval. Because should it not pass for whatever reason, then we need another motion on the table. So does it make sense maybe to, before we do that, unless we haven't heard from Commissioner Collins, Mr. Siebert as the second. I just have I sense 3-3 based on what we've talked about. And Commissioner Collins, if you don't mind me inviting, do you have a thought on the matter?
I'm pretty much have the same concerns that Deep has, and I really don't minimize a traffic study. I think that there's really not a road coming off of Reef that isn't have blind spots. Many children on that street. It's just too big of a dense project. Just recently, I think it was last week, there was a flash flood, and that whole part of Reef was ponding. And that was just with a flash flood. I work down there, unfortunately, 7 days a week. I own a rental house down there. it is just too dense, too much density. There's already a problem with parking, and it's not just during the school year. And I've even spoken to the first selectwoman about it, is that there is a influx of, first of all, there's a shortage of fish and game officers. There is a 12-month year fishing off the reef there down past Lantern Point, and it is 12 months out of the year. There already was a drowning down there, which was extraordinarily sad. I was there when it happened, and it is, there's 2 a.m. people coming with fishing rods and small children. I see it all night, 12 months a year, taking up parking spots, not, probably most of them do not have a fish and game permit. And it is just just more density in a already problematic street. I believe that, Reef Road is the evacuation road with the town, not Roland, not Lally or Penfield, but Reef. It would be, horrible if certain emergency vehicles couldn't go down there during an episode, but it's just too big, too dense, too many cars. I really can't, I wouldn't speculate on what the development who would be living in there. It's not up to us to speculate whether it'd be students or it'd be, families. I have a small family, everybody has a car. So, I mean, it's just like the days of one car families is non-existent. And then there's visitors, which are roaming around trying to look for a parking spot. And this is year round. I'm there year round. So I am not for this. Thank you.
So based,
Right.
okay, I mean,
I just want to respond to that. Again, I live within 400 yards of this development, so I'm very familiar with it. Fishing, I think, is totally irrelevant and is not a concern of this commission. The parking down by the beach area with fishing, I don't know that is in any way relevant to this application. In terms of the traffic study, again, reiterating my point of view, there's no traffic concern here. Reef Road is from Howard Street all the way down to the Sea Grape is pretty much a straight run. There are no blind spots either coming out of Lynn Street, Quincy, Howard, Charles, Bears, you name it. They're normal stop signs. There's no blind spots there. My concern is not the traffic, but it's the ratio between the number of people, the number of cars in a flood prone area. And that's the issue that I think needs to be addressed by the applicant.
all right, I mean, I would think maybe we can turn to a vote at this point. I mean, unless you have any.
Just one other point, whether
Just to, I find myself usually divided from the commissioners whom I usually align with very closely. So just to address a couple of issues, I don't know if density is the problem. The reason I say this application is incomplete is because that was never addressed. The issues raised by Deep for the egress during a storm were not addressed. And back to my issues about incompleteness, it's the forecast on the number of parking spaces that are needed for this building was incomplete. They applied a simple ratio for a building type. In my professional experience, and as I said earlier, my master's thesis at the University of Pennsylvania was on dormitory buildings. This really looks like a dorm. We can generate a much higher volume of parking requirements, which would create potentially an egressing limitation in a storm event, but that was not presented. It was dissembled by the applicant whether this was going to be a dormitory, which was frankly insulting to this commission. This is going to be, the size of these units are half the size of all the other market units in town. They're about 500 feet versus 1,000 feet. So they're half the size. And they intentionally left that fact out. They said a twin bed could fit in these rooms. And we hear that that's not the case. You need 100 square feet. this is an incomplete application. I'm giving them, and I don't want to put conditions that will have an unintended consequence or perhaps limit the developer's ability to come back with a market rate opportunity. I want to give them the opportunity to come back to us with a solution that addresses these
But
issues.
just out of curiosity, I know we're late in time here, but I would think that the fact that it's, what you said, because I just don't know, that it's the market, these are smaller than market rates, would actually be beneficial because you are potentially, at that point, certainly mitigating the fact that they could be, put more people in them. I mean, as Ms. Harrigan said, these are 70 square feet bedrooms that would only allow one unit, one person occupant. If they were bigger, as you said, double the size, they could fit two. So I would think the whole, again, I think the student speculation is a speculative thing, but I would think the fact that they scaled back the units only helps mitigate the potential of overcrowding.
Well, my concern isn't the overcrowding, it's the quantification of vehicles associated with this building was not truthfully presented or accurately presented.
Well,
which-
I
which-
mean,
which
be
goes into the-
mindful of truthful. I mean, I disagree with that. I mean, they provided a parking study that I thought was in line with what we've always seen. The issue that we raised was the commission raised was the student aspect of it, which they then tried to address. But in their minds, this is market rate and not students. And again, I mean, I think it goes back to the same idea though, whether it's overcrowding or more vehicles. If it's a bigger unit in line with, as you say, market rate sizes with more people in them, then that would be more vehicles potentially. So, I mean, in that respect, I thought their smaller units only helped, I guess is my point, everything.
Just to be clear on my concern, it's not the unit size, it's not, the density intuitively seems to be the issue. It's the accuracy of the information on how many cars will be required to service this building properly. And in a storm event, how many vehicles will need to leave this site and a plan for that. So it's not my concern, the density might be the issue, but it's not fishing either. Do we know how many cars will be on the site? I'm not clear on that.
Okay.
Do we know we're going to get the cars out in a storm event? I'm not clear on that. That's what I'm asking. That's the question I'm
That's
asking.
fine. I mean, I think I've said what I can. I mean, how many parking spaces? I forget offhand.
I believe it's, sorry, let me just grab that.
64.
Is okay. I mean, that's,
Quicker on the draw than I am.
I did look this up.
no, that's fine. I mean, 64 by 45 is a rate of 1.4, which is what we commonly see, I
There are
think.
81 bedrooms in this building.
I know, but that's not, again, that's treating this project, I think, differently than what we do with other 830Gs, but we don't, I'm sorry, I don't need it. All right. All right, so we have a motion on the table. We haven't gone through potential conditions of approval, but I think we should test the motion, right?
Can I mean, if we vote on this motion, can't test conditions, if the motion fails, we can't.
The motion
We
fails.
can't make that same motion again. If the motion carries, you can't test the conditions, so,
Why not? Yeah,
so just another alternative is, and this obviously is up to Commissioner Randolph, would be to withdraw the motion, make a motion with conditions that could then be tested. And if you can't reach those, that motion could be made again.
I mean, that's up
At
to-
his discretion,
Yeah,
but you can't do the reverse, I don't think.
well, that's my point is it sounds like potentially 4 are in favor of the motion to deny without prejudice. If they want to hear more on the conditions of approval, I would suggest that be raised now or the motion be withdrawn. If not, then I'd say let's just vote and move on is my point.
What's the sequence?
It's up to, I mean, Frank, it's up to you. Are you more intrigued you want to hear out the conditions of
It's
approval?
just out of respect for the commissioners, I'd like to hear the proposed.
That's fine. That's what I want to know. Go ahead.
If that's the case, I would suggest, and I think there's been a very fruitful discussion. And I came here with some ideas, but, discussion leads to potentially other ideas. And my suggestion would be to table it and at our next meeting, we could have two draft, just put it over for 1 week. And maybe Commissioner Randolph and I, being less than three, could talk about potential conditions, which might be conditions of approval or a basis for a denial with a request to come back. So it would be my suggestion would be withdraw the motion, table it, and come back with some more substantive proposals next week. And again, I think this discussion has sort of spurred my thinking, and I appreciate particularly Commissioner Randolph's thoughtful, analysis of the situation where it may be more density, but larger concerns.
Well, I'll start with Commissioner Randolph and I'll speak one thing. Go ahead.
Yeah, I agree with Commissioner Levy's suggestion to withdraw it and then discuss it, table it.
So Commissioner Siebert, you're seconded.
I'm totally in favor of that.
All right,
Based
and
on this
but I'll be,
discussion.
just to be fair to you and Commissioner Collins,
Yeah.
because you're alternative sitting,
Yeah.
there's a chance, and I think this is the case, Ms. Harrigan, unless I'm wrong, that at our next hearing, we have this Commissioner Harrigan and or Commissioner Ford, you and correct, help me out, everybody. I don't, there's a chance one or both of you may not sit.
I think you mean Commissioner Harrison, not Harrigan.
Correct.
Yeah, you know what I meant, sorry. So I just want to be fair to you two.
And that's fair. I don't foresee that for me.
But
Me not being in attendance. Is that,
it's not a matter of you, it's just that they're sitting.
okay, I got you. I understand the risks.
It's not even a risk. I just want you to know that,
Whatever. I just think based on this conversation, I think there should be conditions of approval. We have to agree on those.
well, at least considered, yeah.
Considered, yeah. And I don't think we've come to that consensus yet.
Okay, that's, all right. So is there,
I would move to table
well, hold
without.
on, is they're withdrawing at this point. I don't think,
No,
Would
that's
move
the
to
point.
table.
withdrawing your motion to deny without prejudice.
Can I amend that and say move to table?
It's a superseding motion, so that way the motion's still on the table, so he doesn't have to.
Fine. All right, so you're amending it to
Move to table.
move the table, okay.
So that motion is still on the
Do
table.
you,
So then
do
the
you,
alternates would
hold on.
remain.
The alternates remain?
The motion's still on the table.
Yeah.
I was superseded at that point.
I don't know.
The motion to table supersedes, but that motion would still be on the table when we resume.
First we would vote on whether to table, correct?
Correct.
All right, I mean, I think I made at least I just gave fair warning to Commissioner Siebert and
Yeah.
Collins, just in case.
Yeah.
That's,
It would still be looking at fund tabled.
I don't know. That's what I want to preface with it with just, I'm not sure.
We really don't know the answer to that.
Well, I mean, again, if you're willing to withdraw, right now, what Commissioner Randolph is doing is amending his motion to table.
Yeah.
So are you okay with that?
That's not an amended motion. It's just a separate superseding motion.
I'm okay with that.
I thought you had to
Yeah.
withdraw, but
I would prefer to table so we don't have new commissioners coming in we need to bring up to speed on this matter.
I don't know that you can prevent that.
I don't know. I mean, we can ask Attorney Pierce.
Okay.
That's why I'm giving
Yeah.
Commissioners Siebert and Collins fair warning, because I don't know.
Right. Understood. There's an unknown.
Yes, all right, so if I mean, normally I would ask for the withdrawal of a motion before getting one. You're suggesting that we can just.
Suggesting that because it preserves his right to first then decide if he wants to withdraw it then or
All right, I mean, so the motion is to. Help me out here.
the motion is just a table to the next
All
meeting.
right, motion to table, all right, is there any objection to that? All right, not hearing anything, all right. Any discussion on motion to table?
Can't.
I mean, with respect to the tabling itself, not the substantive motion. All those in favor of the motion to table, please say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
All opposed? So it passes 6-1 on opposition.
Good discussion.
No, very good. Apologize for the length, but that is a pretty informative, important decision, or topic at least, excuse me. All right. Next item, I'll call the next three in order at the same time, and depending on our conversations, we can vote on them separately. We've been talking them together. Application of Shapiro Commons LLC to establish a new section 39 for a Stilson Road housing zone per section 830G of the Connecticut General Statutes. 430 and 452 Stilson Road, application of Shapiro Commons LLC to establish a Stilson Road housing zone on land presently zoned Residence A. 430, 452 Stilson Road, compliance application of Shapiro Commons LLC for a 68-unit residential development pursuant to section 830G of the Connecticut General Statutes. Ms. Harrigan.
For 430 and 452 Stilson Road, the proposed housing project for this site has applied for a zoning regulation amendment and a zone change application with a site plan review per the 830G state statute. Although zoning regulations are not required as part of an 830G submittal, the courts have opined per the Beach Road decision that an applicant can submit regulations at their discretion. And the TPZ's burden to review them is held to the same standard as the 830G project. The zone change is not discussed in length here as it simply complements the applicant's proposed zoning regulation request for the subject parcel by changing the zone. The commission may wish to act on these items collectively depending on its deliberation and findings. The zoning regulation amendment is for a proposed Stilson Road housing zone. And it generally applies to the proposed development site and for affordable housing developments that meet the 830G section of the Connecticut General Statutes. Although TPZ staff has suggested renumbering the section number for other requests, as mentioned on the prior application, this seems appropriate as quote unquote an overlay district that can be put in the appendix section of the reorganized zoning regulations that went in effect on September 6th. However, TPZ staff has the following proposed reasonable modifications to clarify the application of the overlay to the subject sites specifically. Under 39.1, purpose and intent, this section permits an affordable housing project for sites within 750 feet of Black Rock Turnpike. It's recommended that the following language be revised to apply to these properties only as follows. The purpose of this section is to increase the availability of affordable and attainable rental or for sale housing opportunity or affordable dwellings in Fairfield where existing and adequate public facilities and services are present. And the proposal, add the language, is located at 430 and 452 Stilson Road. Strike out the section that says within 750 feet of the major commercial corridor of Black Rock Turnpike. Said dwellings will promote housing choice and economic diversity within the town of Fairfield. Sections 39.2 and 39.3 include standard language for affordability and site plan submittal requirements. However, the following can be stricken as it does not apply to this parcel, and subsequent sections can be renumbered accordingly. And that would be the applicant's section 39.3.3, if applicable, an application for coastal area management approval, as this is not located within the area necessary for that review. Section 39.4 provides the site plan requirements and location of zone. TPZ staff recommends the following changes. In 39.4.1, the SRHZ is an overlay zone and shall be located, add the words at 430 and 452 Stilson Road, and then go ahead and strike out only on land fronting on Stilson Road south of Black Rock Turnpike, Connecticut Route 58, and shall satisfy the following. Sections 39.5 through 39.9 are specific to the building standards for height, bulk, and setbacks proposed for the specific project, or are other standards generally consistent with other town requirements. However, section 39.9.2 for signage exceeds the limits within the town's current sign requirements in residential zones. As this regulation is not needed to address the needs of affordable housing, TPZ staff suggests the following change in order to be compliant with town standards and limit light glare issues to adjacent structures. The applicant's section 39.9.2 For signage, notwithstanding any other provision provided for in these regulations, signage may be proposed and approved as part of a site plan application pursuant to this section. One building identification sign is allowed with a maximum size of strike out 30 and replace with 20 square feet. Signs may be and add insert located at the first floor height only. And externally illuminated and add insert with shielding to meet dark sky requirements. Section 39.10 for parking provides a 1.25 space per dwelling unit requirement. I just wanted to indicate that the applicant does meet this requirement and provides approximately 1.5 spaces per unit. And this is fairly consistent with other multifamily projects that the town has reviewed in the past. Section 39.11 provides items that are needed for application for zone change approval. TPZ staff recommends striking the following as unnecessary for this project site. And that would be the applicant's 39.11.5, if applicable, an application for coastal area management approval. This area is not anywhere near that review requirement. It should be noted that a valid protest petition with signatures from owners of property that represents a minimum of 20% of the area within the 500-foot radius of the proposed properties subject to the zone proposal was successfully submitted. As previously noted on other applications and by Attorney Russo in his citation of the Branford Housing Authority case decided by Judge Berger at the Superior Court level, there is some dispute as to whether a protest petition can be submitted for an 830G affordable housing case. I'm gonna skip that and do that on the next one. For the site plan review, the applicant requests a residential apartment building with 66 units with retention of the single family structure located at 452 Stilson Road, for a total of 67 on-site units per 8-30G of the Connecticut General Statutes. There are 48 parking spaces below the structure and 55 surface parking spaces located behind the single-family residential structure. As stated on the prior application, the applicant's project site is located within the Residence A zone, which otherwise permits a single-family residence on a minimum 9,375 square foot lot. 430 Stilson Road is located directly adjacent to commercial properties in the Design Commercial District on Black Rock Turnpike, while 452 Stilson Road is located adjacent to a single-family residence. The apartment building portion of the project is designed as a 5-story building with a rooftop elevator/stair tower containing 4 residential floors over a parking level and is oriented to the northmost portion of the property with the entrance to the building facing south towards the surface parking area. The project provides an approximate parking ratio of 1.5 spaces per unit. The apartment building contains 31 bedroom units and 36 two-bedroom units and has a gym area, and access is shown to the roof, but no clear rooftop amenities have been indicated. The single-family structure remains on the property with screening fencing and its own detached garage, which appears to be accessed from the southern driveway. The applicant's experts have indicated that WPCA approval has been granted for this project to connect into the town sewer system, and public water supply is available at the site. The Inland Wetlands Agency granted approval of the prior 19-unit project on August 7th, 2024, which requires a site monitor during the construction phase and the consideration of dark sky compliant lighting design for the project. However, the Conservation Department has not provided additional guidance about the revised application. The landscape plan provides significant screening around the north and south sides of the property with a combination of trees and shrubs. A landscape buffer is also provided to the rear of the single-family residential structure. There's also a wetlands creation planting plan / wetland buffer habitat enhancement in the upland review area. 6 street trees are proposed along Stilson Road, which will require Connecticut DOT review and final approval. The stormwater system was reviewed as part of the wetlands permit, as the overflow to that system provides a new detention basin that will become a future wetland area. The applicant's traffic consultant's report indicates that trip generation for the proposed 66-unit building and single-family home can be accommodated by Stilson Road. Driveway sightlines are adequate. and the project does not negatively impact adjacent roadways. The proposal reduces the existing curb cuts from 3 locations to 2 locations, with the northern driveway a one-way in and the southern driveway with 2-way access. The applicant also proposes to move the existing curb closer to their property in order to allow for a deeper left turn lane at the intersection of Stilson Road and Black Rock Turnpike, which was a safety measure recommended by the Black Rock Turnpike Safety Study adopted by the town in May 2019, and which has been submitted as part of the record by an adjacent neighbor. Final location for driveways and the curb realignment will need to be reviewed and approved by Connecticut DOT. Per other projects on state roads, a concrete sidewalk will be required to be installed along the property frontage. The applicant provides a fire department access plan on the site layout and grading plan shown on sheet 2.0 as prepared by J. Edwards and Associates dated 7/15/2025, and has indicated that this provides full fire engine access and maneuvering. Neighbors expressed concerns about the heavy traffic and pedestrian safety, and crashes on Stilson Road, and in particular at the Stilson Road and Black Rock Turnpike intersection, and the potential impacts of the increased number of trips this project would generate that may exacerbate the traffic safety. Neighbors also expressed concern about the adjacent wetlands and wildlife to the rear of the site and the potential impacts of the project on the expansive wetlands to the rear of Pansy Road, as well as the potential loss of the large pines between the existing single-family properties that would be removed as part of the construction. Other residents expressed concern about the demand to city and school services as a result of the additional proposed units, and an overall dislike of the increase in density and overcrowding. Attorney Green, on behalf of his clients, expressed concern about fire department and delivery vehicle access on the site, as well as the proposed garage spaces being able to accommodate large SUVs. Attorney Green requested that the prior application for the 19-unit project be incorporated as part of the record for the proposed 830G, and Attorney Russo also agreed to allow this to be incorporated. The commission is familiar with the standards for review of a denial of an affordable housing application, and those standards were discussed during the hearing. The burden shall be on the commission to prove that the decision is based on sufficient evidence in the record. The decision is necessary to protect a public interest in health, safety, or other matters within the commission's jurisdiction. Such interests clearly outweigh the need for affordable housing, and such public interests cannot be protected by reasonable changes to the proposed development. Court cases have indicated that the record must establish more than a mere possibility of harm to a substantial public interest. The record must contain evidence as to quantifiable probability that a specific harm will result if the application is granted. Mere concerns alone do not amount to sufficient evidence to support the denial of an affordable housing application. Should the commission determine that approval of the project is warranted, TPZ staff recommends the following conditions: changes to the proposed zoning regulations for the Stilson Road housing zone as indicated in the staff comments, parking spaces both within the garage and in the parking area to be specifically assigned by unit in order to provide clear direction to tenants and to minimize unnecessary trips circulating within the property. Coordinate with the town engineering department and Connecticut DOT to revise the curb area in front of the project site to provide a deeper designated left turn lane for Stilson Road onto Black Rock Turnpike, with full installation of sidewalks along the property frontage, as well as street tree installation. Affordability requirements per the Economic Development Department to be met for the provision of 21 affordable units based on the total of 67 on-site units for the 830G. A deed restriction for the set-aside development must be recorded on the land records prior to the issuance of the building permit and is subject to final review by the Economic and Community Development Department prior to filing. Revision of the lighting plan shown on sheet 5.0, prepared by J. Edwards and Associates, dated 7/15/2025, to eliminate the lighting trespass to the wetlands buffer and upland review area to the rear and at the southern property line to the satisfaction of the Conservation Department and the Planning Director, and to ensure that all light fixtures are located at an appropriate height, are full cutoff and dark sky compliant, to reduce negative impacts to wildlife and adjacent residential neighbors. And lastly, all stormwater detention systems to be designed to the satisfaction of the town's engineering department prior to issuance of a building permit.
Thank you, Ms. Harrigan. May I have a motion, please? Marcelo,
Move to approve with the site plan revisions shared by the applicant on July 29th, as well as the conditions recommended by staff and requirement that any retaining wall be set back a minimum of 12 inches from property line.
is there a second? Commissioner Levy seconds. Commissioner Corsillo,
This application, the main concern that was raised had to do with traffic. I think the testimony by neighbors and frankly, my own experience driving by the site frequently is that there is an existing traffic condition. Traffic backs up in front of and around this property on Stilson. As I just said, and say frequently existing conditions are not grounds for denying an 830G application. And I did not find any evidence in the record to support the view that the proposed project would create the traffic generated by the proposed traffic would create a condition that doesn't presently exist. Other concerns about density, I don't find are valid here. I think frankly, one concern I have, I think this project is a bit overparked, but whether the applicant proposed the number of parking spaces it did because it thought it was necessary for financial viability or because they thought it was needed to win approval, I'm not sure. So I think ultimately that is what it is. I would prefer to see fewer parking spaces with some landscaping to reduce the amount of impervious surface. I think there's too much impervious surface here, but again, I don't think any of that rises to the level of grounds for denying the project. And do not see any other evidence that constitutes a quantifiable probability of harm to public health or safety. So be voting to approve this project.
thank you. Commissioner Levy,
Yeah, not much to add. I prefer the 19-unit project that we previously approved, but I guess that's in court, where this one may be too. But that's neither here nor there. As to each project or each proposal will stand or fall on its own merits. In this particular case, I cannot say that there's evidence of a quantifiable probability that there's specific harm will result if the application is granted. The biggest concern, of course, is the existing condition, Filson Road. And hopefully the applicant and Connecticut DOT and others will be able to move that curb cut back further away from Black Rock Turnpike, which would allow for an extension of the left turn lane onto Stilson Road. Because, we've all experienced waiting 2 or even 3 light sequences in order to turn left from Stilson onto Black Rock. But that's an existing condition, and this is not going to have a significant impact upon what's already there. And if anything, if they can correct the location of the curb cut and extend that left turn lane area, it might actually improve the conditions. So based upon that, I will be voting for approval with the conditions as specified.
thank you. Commissioner Randolph,
I understand that the neighbors disagree with the scale of this building. But as we know, 830Gs cannot be rejected simply because of their scale or density. There has to be demonstrable harm, and this building is too big. But that's not a criteria for us to reject it or ask for a qualification. As Commissioner Levy stated, I think the previous application, which was a smaller scale, was much less intrusive. But we've seen no evidence of harm. I know traffic is an issue throughout town. I think that this building does represent some sound planning principles, though. Its density in close proximity to commercial corridor. It's not by itself as it's a building that is not, it's adjacent to commercial properties directly. And we saw no evidence that to give us reasons for denial. So I'll be voting to approve.
Yeah, I concur. Similar issue that we've been facing. The 30Gs had been tad to much bigger than we would prefer or want. Because Commissioner Levy said prefer the 19 units that were there. But we're evaluating this on its own. As much as I think the neighbors' observations and all our observations of the area are valid and correct. The standard in the court is different. And I don't see it as, I don't see the evidence as well. And I mean, I think this is kind of similar to a lot of the applications we've seen. And I mean, try, as we say, no precedents. We don't set precedent, but we be fair and consistent with our findings and our determinations. And I think this is in line with what we've seen, or at least the commission and as a whole sees in the past with other similar applications. So more to add. Certainly too big, but again, it's not based on that. It's based on the evidence and much more to say beyond that. Commissioner Collins or Siebert?
Commissioner Collins unfortunately had to drop off.
Okay, well, that's helpful. And Commissioner Braun is recused, correct?
Yes, well, I believe so.
That's my understanding as well.
Need to table this one.
No, I don't think so. With the 5 we have here, Commissioner Siebert, thoughts on the matter? Or?
No, I would agree with all the comments previously made. I don't doubt for 1 second that there's a traffic issue in that area. I take that route every day of my life, but I don't see how this particular development exacerbates a situation that already exists. So I would say that meets all the requirements for approval.
Anything further?
Procedurally.
So put it to a vote?
Yeah, I mean, procedurally, there'll be 5 of us voting.
Oh, okay.
Majority rules as far as the site plan. And I think I've confirmed since that with 8-3, which would require 4 commissioners to approve a zone change, is not applicable to an 830G. So to my mind, majority rules on both the regulation amendment and the site plan.
Well, there is a valid petition, right?
Mhm.
I mean, I think discussing this, I think with the peers, with the Superior Court in mind, that's compelling authority to us. Go with that. We've done it already. And
It may be academic.
it may be, the 5 of us voted in favor of it, so I don't think it matters at this point, but I would say let's have a vote and see where this shakes out, so to speak. So,
A question.
sure.
Could you just clarify that? Would you, the 5 people and the issue that you just described, could you just?
Well, the protest petition, in a regular motion to amend the zone, if there is a valid protest petition, 20% within 500 feet, it moves from, if you have that, it moves from a 4 out of 7 majority to a 5 out of 7. And this is an 830G, and where does that apply? Superior Court case says that it does not, meaning moving up from a 4 to a 5 vote is not applicable in 830G applications. Superior Court, it's, I think, compelling. I don't think it is compelling authority to us. That's a term of art. And I have a feeling, though, based on what we all just said, we're gonna have 5 votes anyways. So
Thank you.
that's let's have the vote first and then make sure of that. Everybody understand the motion with conditions? All those in favor, please say aye or raise your hand. Commissioner Collins jumped out, Commissioner Braun is recused, so it passes 5-0. With the 5. Second. Moving on to compliances. 131 Beach Road, review of proposed facade revision to allow for a first-story front porch at the building entry in Visionary Village residential use zone. Commissioner Braun, are you back on? There you are.
I think we can just show the, well, we could start with the site, I think with just the site plan. As you know, 131 Beach Road is an 830G project that was denied by this commission and then approved via the courts with a zoning regulation amendment as well. That zoning regulation amendment requires a 50-foot front yard setback, which with the proposed porch is still met. But the applicant requested this change specifically to help with the massing of the building facing the street and also to provide some level of shelter for residents coming in during inclement weather. In terms of my staff review, I feel like it meets the requirements of the proposed zone that is specific to this project. But it seemed appropriate, given that our regulations normally require slight facade modifications to come before you to review this and approve this. John, if you could go to the building elevations. It's just a very small, see it on the elevation, just a very small porch overhang over a portion of the front entry and over a paved entry walkway area to the building. That's all I have.
And I guess it's in compliance with,
It's in compliance with the regulation that applies to this site.
which is a new zone regulation that was imposed on us by the court, which I guess it doesn't really address these types of, or does it address this overhang?
Well, it prescribes a front yard setback, which is still met with this porch proposal.
So this was addressed with me and I felt the need that this has to come because part of it is we didn't approve this. It was kind of, put down on us by the courts. And well, let's get a motion on first, sorry. Or I can give an introductory, whatever people want. But, again, well, let me just keep going with my thought then. The reason this needed to be addressed, I think, by us because in this kind of fashion, because again, this is something that was put down by the courts onto us. We didn't really agree with this. I don't think this is specifically called out in their zoning regs. And I'll keep going from it. I think we need a motion on the table.
Point of information.
Sure.
When in the judge's decision, was it remanded back to the commission and we were then approved it, or the judge just?
It was just approved without any mention of this or what to do. So it's up to the commission. Part of me was thinking the court, well, go ahead, before I get going.
I'll move to approve.
Okay. Is there a second, Commissioner Randolph? All right, Commissioner Levy.
Yeah, I drove by the building and the front is rather massive looking. This would be an improvement. I don't know why they're not running it all the way across the building, but I notice there is a slight change in the front facade in terms of a setback. Maybe that's why. But I think in terms of the aesthetics of the building, it would be an improvement. So I'd approve it.
Commissioner Randolph.
It is an amenity to the building. It is an improvement and it's not intrusive. So I see no reason to object to it.
And I'll go into this why I was trying to hold off. Part of me wants to object to it because first off, it's so small. I just, it's a very small amenity. It doesn't strike me that it's gonna do much to begin with. And this is something that's court approved, not us. I don't know, part of me thinks that with such a small potential benefit, small, I mean, material or immaterial, I don't know. I mean, this seems something that they, if this got forced down on us by the court, I tell them to go back to the court and ask for it. I mean, I just don't feel the need to, I mean, if it was making something materially better, I just don't see this as being anything material, but that's just my thought. Commissioner Braun? You're on mute.
Question for Ms. Harrigan. What is the regulation for setback and what is the existing distance of the building versus what it would be with this appendage? And how wide is it? I wish there was a rendering. I really can't even, is there a front of the building we could see to see how wide it is?
There is, but you can't really, when you look at that elevation, it's not really that clear to see it. The porch overhang is 5'6" by 26 feet, 11 and a half inches over an area that's already a paved area that provides kind of an entry, a paved entrance to the building that's a curb that is outside of the 24-foot wide drive aisle. There are parking spaces in front of the building. So this just provides an additional entry amenity to the entrance.
So this is within the parking area?
No, it's within a, there's a curbed brick pavement entry area. If you just scroll.
Is that the front of the building to,
Yeah, he's getting there. He's just zooming. No, that's the back.
Oh, that's the back. All
Yeah, go to the other side.
My bad.
Right in this area. If you can
So what
see,
is-
there's a curb that extends along the entire length of the building frontage. And then this porch is just a portion of that curbed brick paved area at the front of the building.
So
So-
that porch would go about 2/3 the width of the property? Because the property is built right out to the boundary, isn't it, more or less?
No, as you can see on this site plan, there is a row of 4 parking spaces, including 2 handicap spots. And then there's a drive aisle, a 24-foot wide drive aisle before you get to the pavement area,
So
the
what
curbing
was
area.
proposed there before the porch was, or the entry? What was gonna be there before this was being proposed?
Just a curbed brick area that signified the entrance to the building.
And again, how close is that edge of this to the, what is the setback? What is the setback that's allowed in the regulation the court approved versus?
50 feet to the front of the building, and this is, oh, I don't have my 18 plus 24. Sorry.
So the building has to be 50 feet from the town right of way?
Correct.
And does this make it less than 50 feet? Looks very
No.
close.
No, it still meets the 50.
So it's exactly 50 feet. So in other words, there's parking spaces to the left, right near the road. And then there's a sideways driveway.
Yes.
And how tall is this gonna be, or how high? Like
It's,
1 foot?
It's 8'9" off of the pavement, the brick area. The brick pavement area in front of the building.
Because at one point they were talking about some kind of facade improvements to make the whole thing look better. They didn't do that. They're just offering this, I guess.
That was part of a settlement that never was put into
Oh,
effect, as far as I think what you're referring to.
yeah, that's what I'm referring to. I thought I remembered that.
Well, I guess the question is, Ms. Harrigan, is there anything about this that violates current regulation?
No, I would say not. I mean, not the regulation that was sent down from the court.
All right, this doesn't increase the lot coverage or in, I guess, okay.
And is our burden of proof the same as an 830G, or how do we?
This
what
is a
is the-
compliance application. So we're in our administrative capacity as to whether this complies with the regulations.
Okay.
Any other questions?
I think it's basically just an awning, and memory serves, awnings are allowed to even go into the setback. They covering just an existing curb area. And from my observation, the front of the building could use a little help. So
I think it's all gonna be, only be a little, but wise with the regulations, I mean, about it. Final thoughts, questions? Put this to a vote. All those in favor, please say aye or raise your hand. Let's see, 6 hands, so it passes unanimously. Go to our public hearing. The first item, as I said in the beginning of the meeting, is moved to September 30th. So we're going to 845 Mill Hill Terrace subdivision application of OHI Asset CT Southport LLC for 4 lots in a Residence A zone.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm Brian Carey with Land Tech, offices in Westport, Connecticut. Andy Somalides, who is the project engineer on this, is actually joining through Zoom. I don't know if it's possible to let him in. He might be a little bit behind. We had dual meetings tonight.
Do you see
I
him?
just promoted him to co-host.
Thank you. So I did put together a brief, very brief PowerPoint to go through this, and then you can ask me any questions. The site plans will show up here after we go through the PowerPoint. Basically, this application's for a 4-lot residential subdivision in an R3 zone. You can see that it's right behind Mill Hill School to the southwest, adjacent to I-95, and to the northwest is the existing Maplewood facility that was constructed a couple years back. So there's a spit of land right there that was subdivided off as part of the Maplewood property. So like I said, this application is for a 4-lot subdivision in an R3 residential district. The total area of the property is 3.01 acres, currently unimproved. We plan to create 4 conforming single-family residential lots. Access will be coming off of the existing cul-de-sac. It used to be called Horse Tavern Lane. I think it was recently changed since we've been working on this. The new public street will be a 50-foot right-of-way with a cul-de-sac. Turnaround utilities for the property will include public water, sanitary sewer to the existing sewer that runs down Mill Hill. We already did receive WPCA approval for this application. And all the utilities will be underground, electric and communication. So we're not seeking any variances of the subdivision regulations. There are no flood zones on the property. So there is no special flood zone hazard. Existing conditions on the site. The site is gently sloping towards the pond. That's adjacent to the property, but off the site. It's really, the existing site is a mixed successional vegetation, forested canopy, mostly invasive. So there are no wetlands on site, but the site is within the 100-foot upland review area to the offsite from to the north and west. There are no wetland soils on the property. Budding properties are residential, and to the north, commercial in nature. Just a quick note, we did go through quite a lengthy inland wetlands process prior to this approval. We previously, some of you might have been on the commission, we were seeking a 5-lot subdivision, which would have required a open space set aside. The Wetland Commission actually denied our 5-lot subdivision. So we went down to a 4-lot subdivision, which wiped out the need for open space set aside. But that being said, we are seeking a 4-lot subdivision. Approximately all the lots meet the shapes and sizes required under the zoning regulations for the R3 zone. One of the conditions that the wetland board put on it was they wanted to see a conservation easement along the northern part of the property to protect the steep slopes, and we didn't have a problem providing that. Again, the roadway and utilities, like I said, 50-foot right of way, which is compliant with the town engineering standards. We will have concrete curbs and driveway aprons provided for each lot. I said earlier, all new underground utilities, water, sewer, they'll all be extended to serve each lot. Sight lines and grades designed for safety and town standards. This was previously reviewed by the town engineer as part of the lengthy inland wetland process, and they didn't really have any specific questions since we met all of their requirements. As far as stormwater management, because this had to go in front of the Inland Wetland Commission under their section 7.3, they actually have a higher standard than the town engineer for stormwater runoff. So we are reducing the post development 10-year storm to the 2-year pre-development peak. So it's a very, very low threshold. All the roadway drainage will be runoff to catch basins, underground detention, and then there's a level spreader that goes between 2 of the lots, which there will be a permanent easement over. Each of the lots includes its own infiltration system, sized to manage up to the 100-year storm. Everything was designed to the TR 55 standards and meets the town drainage criteria standards. Erosion and sediment controls are provided on the ENS plan based on the 2002 Connecticut stormwater soil and erosion criteria from the DEP. As I mentioned earlier, we did have quite a lengthy process with the Conservation Commission, but we did finally receive approval in July 2025. We turned this around quickly. Just some of the things that they wanted that I think will benefit, again, some of the questions that we normally get from the zoning commission. They do have a permanent conservation easement buffer that will reduce the amount of trees that are being removed on steep slopes on some of the lots. We will be doing invasive species management plan where we will mechanically remove targeted invasive species on the property. There was a separate plan that was submitted for that. And again, there are no direct impacts to wetlands. All work will be done outside of the regulated areas. We submitted this application in July. We've already started a little bit of utility coordination for the water and sewer. There's no DOT access permit required because this is a local road connection. And just all of the individual lots. So you're just approving the subdivision. We'd have to come back for individual permits for the lots that are regulated by inland wetlands, plus zoning compliance, zoning permits, and then building permits, and finally as-built and COs. So I don't really need to go through this, but it just shows for the conformance with Fairfield subdivision regulations. It's in the project narrative. It just says how we meet all of the requirements of the subdivision regulations. And then just basically our site plan laying everything out. You want to, if you have any questions, again, this is a as of right subdivision. It meets all the regulations. Each of the lots is conforming. We're not seeking any variances to any of the zoning regulations or the subdivision regulations. And everything will be basically done underground utilities. We won't be seeking any variances for that. We've already had some minor discussions with the tree warden regarding trees on the properties. And that's about it. I haven't, between the multiple hearings with wetlands, I haven't had any residents come out here, come to any of the meetings to give us any notes or anything else, which is a little bit unusual.
Commissioner Randolph.
Yeah, just some clarification questions. So just to understand your drawing standards, I see in the conservation easement, it looks like some lines connecting zigzags in there.
Yeah, those are plants. Those are actually, that's a planting plan on top of the conservation easement.
What are the lines connecting the plants?
Those are just showing the spacings.
Oh, the spacing.
Yeah, the
Okay, so it just shows
spacing.
the dimension.
Yeah, so
Okay.
it's showing the dimensions.
Thanks for clarifying that. And then you said you're talking to the tree warden. Are there any mature trees that you're able to?
So we did actually come up with a tree removal plan. That was what was being heavily contested during the Inland Wetland Commission. I do believe I put that in the record. If not, I can forward it to you. But we've maximized the amount of trees that we're trying to save on the property. A lot of them, I've gone out there. It is interior core, kind of interior forest, scrubby. A lot of them, I am a licensed arborist in the state of Connecticut. I did do a thorough assessment of most of them. A lot of the mature trees are split and need to come down. They wouldn't survive after the extensive grading that needs to occur on some of these lots.
Thank you for your consideration of that. And then on the parcel plan right, it looks like is that a separate parcel?
Which one?
If you're coming into the subdivision, the left side.
So there's actually an easement that goes through there. There's a right-of-way easement. There's the old Pequot billboard out on exit 19 right there. There's actually an easement going through there. So that area is set aside as a parcel that really can't
So
be
is the
developed.
road being deeded back to the town, just for clarification?
Yes, that's
Okay.
correct.
Okay, cool. That's what I'm saying here. And then so the billboard, we have any chance to get rid of a billboard?
It's actually still used, but I don't think they use that easement anymore because the times I've seen them out there maintaining it, they're actually just pulled off the side of the highway en route.
And thank you for the street trees. Is that a part of the regs now?
It
Street
is,
trees?
yeah.
Okay, great. And then I guess sidewalks are not part of the regs.
They are part of the regulations, but that is a waiver. We are showing sidewalks on this plan though,
We are, okay. It's
just on that one side.
Okay, thank you very much. Thanks for your thoughtfulness on preserving the trees.
Commissioner Braun.
I have a couple questions. Is this affiliated with Maplewood Senior Living? You mentioned it earlier. What is the relationship with this and Maplewood? Is it connected in any way, ownership or management or anything?
It's a separate LLC. This is not, I mean, it's a Maplewood, the LLC's, I don't know what the relationship is, but it's a separate LLC. Maplewood did own this property at one point
And-
during the larger subdivision.
So the invasive management plan, would that be, because I remember back in the day, a couple of years ago, the Maplewood invasive species management plan was being complained about by some of the neighbors. It wasn't being done the right way, and it had something to do with the bond release. But who would be taking care of that with that landscaping or maintenance management plan of the invasives after this?
I mean, whoever is the permit holder for the Inland Wetland Commission permit, whether that's the existing entity or if that's transferred in the future, which is allowed by going back to
Okay.
the commission and ask them to transfer the permit. I don't know. We do work for Maplewood still on that invasive species management plan on
Okay.
the
Do
main.
you remember that?
property.
It was a couple of years ago. Some people were saying it wasn't being done the right way, but then it was conservation said it was okay.
We are still working with them on
Okay.
that. It's ongoing.
That's fine. And then, as far as the open space, I know that you no longer need the 10% open space set aside, but just curious, how much acreage on this parcel is being required for the conservation easement? Is it 10% of the 3 acres, which would be like, is that a third of an acre?
I don't know off the top of my head. I did have that written down.
No, not a third of an acre. 10% would be, I don't know.
It is probably about 10%. It did not encumber any, even with the easement on it. It didn't create an issue with any of the lots. So.
Well, it looks like the lot, okay, there's one lot I had a question about at the end of the cul-de-sac. It looks like when you have the structure shown that would be built there, it would be well into the wetlands buffer area, but like, so if we approve the subdivision, we're allowing that lot to be subdivided. How do they fit a house in there without getting so close to those wetlands at the bottom?
So that-
One of your
so-
Plan shows
so all
where the
your-
house would be. Yeah.
All you're approving is the lot and the road. We have to get individual approvals from, so if we decide to bring that house into the setback of the wetland setback, we'd have to get an individual permit from the conservation department when we go to build each one of these houses.
But since they already approved this plan, they're already anticipating a house being put, I guess, so close to the wetland down there? Because that's a tight squeeze down at that one last lot at the bottom. What's that lot number down? there?
Not really, because that setback's 100 feet from there to the
What's
edge
that?
of
Where
the
is
house.
it?
So,
Yeah.
I mean, so the edge of the wetland, which is off-site, that one corner from
Can you
that area.
show the wetlands buffer? Can you show the 100-foot line compared to the conservation easement or what would be protected? I'm just,
Just
I don't have a-
hang on a second here. We'll do it for you.
is that,
So if we're talking about lot 4,
yeah,
the house fits, so there's a theoretical subdivision plan. Because that's really all we're doing at this point.
I understand, but I don't see how a house fits there without it being entirely in the, see that dotted line is the.
This dotted line is the upland review area, so we're outside of that, although this.
Oh, I
green-
see. The house is on the right there.
Yeah, so
Okay.
I don't know if that's necessarily where the house is gonna go, we're just showing it theoretically how it would work.
And is there an easement there too? Because where's the easement? Can
No,
you show the
Easement
easement? here?
the easement runs from the back of lot 4 all the way up to lot 1 along the back, and the reason why they requested that is because that is steep and there are a lot of mature trees there.
So
So
where does it show on lot 4? I can't see the dotted, I
Just
can't see which
clips.
line.
it clips the, so that would be the northwest corner.
Oh, it doesn't go all the way across lot 4.
Nope. No, it does not.
Okay,
That's not a
So-
area of the property.
okay. I'm good. Thanks so much.
This is Andy Similes, just to clarify the area of the conservation easement. I think that was the question. It's about 15,500 square feet, which is over the 10% of our lot area.
So 15,000 is about, is that a quarter of an acre? No, that's more than a quarter of an acre.
I
Right.
just said it's more than the 10% of the entire.
Well, it's more than a quarter of an acre, so that would be more than 10%, I guess.
Right.
If we do the math right. Thank you. I appreciate that.
You got it.
Any other questions, Commissioner Levy?
Yeah, just by way of clarification, we're basically just being asked to approve the subdivision lots. Anything further as far as where the house goes, whether there's zoning, whether there's conservation, that would be handled administratively.
So if we're within the 100-foot upland review area, any work from there would have to go for individual permit to wetland,
Mhm.
to the conservation department. It wouldn't have to go back to the commission. And then we would go from wetlands, engineering, zoning, building, and then, yeah,
All the lots of compliance.
yeah.
I guess the lot 4 house could be built outside the upland review area.
It could, or we could,
Yeah, we'll figure it
we just
out.
have to mitigate whatever. Yeah, there's,
And that's, even if it's that's up to inland
that's
wetlands,
correct.
not us.
Got it.
Anything
And I
else?
don't think we look, I'm sorry, I don't think we look at it again if somebody, so any individual person could just apply for a wetlands permit and to build a single family home on these approved lots, right? I don't
That's
think that comes to us again, does it?
Correct.
Right.
Because it's as of right.
Yeah, okay, thanks.
Anything else? Anything else? Simple,
Public
straightforward.
comment?
Well, that's the next thing, yeah. And I'll turn to public comment unless you have anything else. I'll end the initial presentation portion of this application and open it up to public comment. Is there any member of the public that wishes to be heard on this application? Sir, I assume you're not. I always start with in-person first. There's nobody in person. Is anybody joining remotely? Anybody joining remotely, if you can please identify yourself either by using the raise hand function at the bottom of the toolbar or signing in the chat to identify yourself as wanting to speak on this application. Is there anybody in remote land? Besides from Commissioner Braun? Final call, does any member of the public wish to be heard in this application? If you're joining remotely, again, you have to identify yourself by using the chat function or raising your digital hand with the raise hand function. Not hearing anybody, I'll close the public comment portion of this application. Any final? Pretty straightforward, I guess, right? All right, so I'll close the hearing on this application. Anything else, Ms. Harrigan, anything further? We're all set, right?
Well said.
So that being the last item, I will close the hearing.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good
Thank
seeing
you
you.
all.
Take care. All right.
We are adjourned.